Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm planning with this kit called Spring Rain from ButterCremeStickers. It's a lovely spring kit. It's kind of lilac, pink, cream, very kind of light and fresh coloring. You've got here headers, some boxes, and the washi has a super cute umbrella on it. I also got a ton of the transparent matte deco as well as the regular kind of premium matte deco. So tons of deco here. Super excited. Love having a lot of extra deco. And yeah, let's get into it. So I want to say a note about this spread in particular. I struggled a lot with this header top of the page deco. I'm not exactly sure why. I think it's because I was trying to maybe do too much. And then, I have these moments sometimes where I'm doing a spread and I put everything down and I'm like, actually I hate the way this looks, and I tear it all up. And that's kind of what happened here. I'm not thrilled that I kind of let my, sometimes I let my, I don't know what you want to call it, insecurity. I don't know. I doubt myself and I'm like, this looks bad, and I just pull it all up, and I wish I wouldn't. I'm trying to get out of the Rip It Up sticker club. But I'm, it's a walk. So I struggled with the top part. Ultimately, I took, I think, most of the deco off and kept the transparent matte stuff and kept it kind of simple and clean. I think that was the right choice ultimately, but yeah, I don't know. I wish I hadn't, second guessed myself on the top. Anywho, so this week was my second week at my new job, and it was great, but very busy. Meeting people, you kind of when you first start, you meet everyone, and it's really fun to kind of get to know people and, be like, hey, we're going to be working together. Who are you as a person? One of my work colleagues asked me, what's good to know about Ashley as a person outside of work, which, the way that he phrased it in particular, was kind of like, wow, no one's ever asked me that in that particular way before. And against the inside of me was like, don't do this. But I just said, hey, I'm a decorative planner. And he was like, what does that mean? And I showed him my Instagram and he was like, wow, this is so cool. And I was like, yeah, it's quite a thriving community, corner of the internet on Instagram and elsewhere. I'm not on TikTok, but I assume that planner talk is, pretty on and poppin'. But I was kind of scared, but I was like, you know what, just go for it. I was scared to show him because I sometimes worry, and I think maybe a lot of you can, empathize with this, that when people hear that I do this as a hobby, they're like, oh my God, she's so childish, or oh my God, this is so weird, or just something negative they think, or they think kind of negatively about me. So I did kind of worry, but at the same time, I was like, you're really liking this job. Everyone seems so friendly and fun and accepting, and they have said multiple times they want you to bring your whole self to work. So why not bring in, this part of yourself that's really, a big part of your life. So I told him about it, and he was like, oh my gosh, you have so many followers, you're so famous. And I was like, I'm not that famous. I'm not famous at all, really. But, he said, you have a YouTube channel? I was like, yeah. He's like, I never knew that you were a creator. And you can bring a whole different perspective to our work, having this as part of your personal life. And I had never really thought about it that way, that, first of all, I never really think of myself as a creator, because I know there are people who do this professionally for a living. And because I have a quote unquote day job, I mean, it is a real job, but because I have a day job, I just never thought of myself as a creator. It's more like I do this, I make videos, and I never really put myself in that bucket because I feel like my, videos and stuff are not as professional or polished. I don't have a brand. I just do stuff that I like and think is cool and fun. And I'm not really trying to monetize from it. So yeah, I kind of shied away from that label, but he was like, you are a subset of our user base, of our product that, you know, is interested in finding other people who are doing the same thing as them and also like, you know, growing their community. And I was like, I never really thought of it that way, but it is kind of a, you know, perspective that I bring and can inform the product. I work in, you know, social media, have for a ton of, you know, years. And yeah, that was cool. It was cool of him to highlight that. I had never really thought of that before. So yeah, it's going really great. Again, it is so much better than my old job. I can't say enough about how much better it is, but I am really, really happy so far, which, you know, has been unusual for me. My last 2 jobs, I will say, you know, the first 30 days, I was like, I've made a grave mistake, you know, and I spent a lot of time unpacking why I felt that way and being like, well, what's wrong? What's this? But so sooner or later, I think it came down to just vibes, you know. I know that's a very trope and like cliche word to say, but honestly, just the vibe was off in some of these places, and it was an unexplainable thing. You know, I was well compensated. You know, to start out with, at my previous job, my coworkers were pretty friendly, but it just didn't feel right, you know. And I'm in a place right now that kind of feels right. So, you know, the pessimist in me is like, don't trust this, Ash. Like, it's very early days, but, you know, I'm going to say it. I'm happy, and I hope it stays this way. So speaking of people being happy in their job, this week I also had the kind of interesting experience of helping my mom talk about negotiating for a raise. So my mom is of the generation that worked the same job their whole lives. Like you start a job, you basically work there until something, you know, you either move away and you have to find another one because you live in a different place, or you quit or get fired. But like, you don't just leave a job, you know. That both of my parents have worked. I think my mom is in this job because she was let go from her last one and she moved into this one. But, you know, the last one she was there double-digit years. This one she's been in double-digit years. Same for my dad. My dad left only because he got an offer for more money, but he wasn't even looking, you know, like it wasn't even on his mind to leave. So my mom was like, hey, you know, I'm thinking of asking for a raise. What should I do? And, you know, I get together with my sisters and I'm like, what should she do? And, you know, I talked to my mom. I was like, hey, have you ever considered just getting another job, you know, potentially, like if they don't want to give you a raise? And, you know, she seemed reluctant to move. And she said, you know, I admire the way you all move so effortlessly. Like, I just started a new job. My sister just started a new job. And we've bounced around a little bit. You know, in tech, it's pretty normal to bounce around every 2 or 3 years. But I know my parents have been like, what? You're quitting a job again? So it's, you know, it's interesting to me, one, to kind of play around with the idea in my head of like, what is it like to be in a space, in a job for a really, really long time, like double-digit years? And then what is it like to kind of have to like negotiate, you know, for a raise when you really don't want to leave, you know? I think the times that I've been in an interesting position where I kind of just waited around for salary increases. Again, in tech, it's like you go through performance review and they give you a raise then, but it's expected that like you will get something, you know, if you're performing, if you're doing well, and there's multiple checks along the way to make sure that you're performing. So I've not really been in the position where I had to kind of go and ask for an out of cycle raise. You know, my last job prior to this one that I am at right now, they gave me a pretty, you know, generous compensation offer. So I didn't think to ask for a raise. And then at the performance cycle, which I left right before that, you know, my boss was like, oh, we were planning on giving you a raise. So it's not been something I've ever had to ask for. And I know that I'm very fortunate and have been really, really lucky to be in sectors like that. So, you know, I talked with my sister and I'm like, how do we, you know, encourage her to do this? And it's about, we were like, okay, go in there, be confident, know what you're asking for. We recommended that she do some research on compensation in similar roles. This is something I kind of did, you know, when I was thinking about moving jobs, kind of just without really thinking about it. It's like, okay, what is the comp expectations for these, the role that I'm in? And like, how do I stack up against, particular levels? Now that I'm talking, I realize I have negotiated, but it's been in the offer stage. So it's been more like I've interviewed for a job, they've given me the offer, and I'm like, can you guys actually do this? And I have done that at almost all of my jobs, because your starting salary is super important, for like future raises. And it's really nerve-wracking. My previous job, I had to go in there and just say, hey, can you guys do this? And like, honestly, working up the nerve was so scary. My sister was like, just practice it in the mirror, practice it. And honestly, I just practiced saying those words. I'd be more comfortable with X, or can you do X? Because it's very scary to ask when you've gotten a job offer for more money. You're like, are they going to take away the offer, even though, they don't really do that? That's, that does happen to people, but I don't think that's an automatic knee-jerk response. But you're also like, what are they going to think of me? Are they going to think I'm greedy? Are they going to think whatever, And that moment when I'm like, can you do X to the recruiter on the phone? And there's like a pause. You're just sitting there like, I'm sweating bullets, because I'm like, what are they going to say? And then I'm like, if they say no, like, I'm going to prepare myself, if they say yes. But, what I have been thinking about saying to my mom is, that you're a high value employee. You are, she's a manager at a bank. Like, they want to retain you. You've done really good work. You're always there. You're very consistent on time. You're like an excellent kind of worker. Like, what should they do to retain you? Like, that should be what they're thinking. At least, again, that's the calculation in tech. So I realize that obviously not everything translates to tech, but I kind of think if I'm a boss and there's a high value candidate, someone who does good work, who's very consistent, who's been performing, don't you want to retain them? Don't you want to, make them happy and keep them there? When people change jobs very frequently, there's a lot of like institutional knowledge that gets lost. Anyway, so that's something that's been on my mind this week. And we gave her some ideas, I heard from her today that it didn't go very well. And, I'm not surprised. I think they like kind of lowballed her, but anywho. So, it's so weird being an adult and like helping your parents. It's an interesting experience because, as a kid, you're like, my parents are the adults, they know everything, like they're in charge. And then you grow up and you start doing a couple things yourself and you're like, wow, like I'm in my early 30s and I don't have kids. I'm like, I don't know how my parents did this with children. Like, I'm exhausted at the end of the day, I don't know how they cooked and cleaned and just, yeah, but it's such a, it's an interesting experience. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk about negotiating and personal finance and tech. We're coming to the end of this spread. Hopefully you all found that at least somewhat entertaining or interesting. If you're interested in hearing more about tech and what it's like to work on and would love to talk more about it, just let me know in the comments. And yeah, hope everyone has a fabulous weekend, and I will see you all next time. Bye.